Welcome everyone. In the previous video, we studied about the anatomy of the outer layer of the eye. That is your cornea, sclera, and then your limbus. In this video, we are going to study about the anatomy of the middle layer of the eye. So, what is the middle layer of the eye? The middle layer of the eye, you call it as uvea or uveal tract. So, what are the parts belong to this uveal tract? This uveal tract is divided into three parts from the anterior to posterior. The first part is called as your iris, and the second is your ciliary body. So, this ciliary body is divided into two parts, pars plicata and pars plana. So anatomically, this is your anterior part and this is your intermediate, and the third part is your choroid. So this is your posterior part. So as we studied in the previous video, the ciliary body, it consists of pars plicata and pars plana. So I have taught you the example. You should keep like your hands like this, and this is your ciliary body, and this part, the finger like projections, is your pars plicata, and this is your pars plana, and the remaining rest of the thing is covered with is your choroid. So this is the easy way of understanding this uveal tract. So anatomically, your iris is called as your anterior part, and the ciliary body is your intermediate part, and the choroid is your posterior part. But if you consider in functionally, so functional anatomy is like, functionally this iris and pars plicata is your anterior part, and this pars plana is your intermediate, and then choroid is your posterior part. So why we call like this? So you have heard a disease called as anterior uveitis. So this anterior uveitis is nothing but the inflammation of the iris and the pars plicata. This is called as anterior uveitis or iridocyclitis. So iris is your iris, and then cyclitis is your pars plicata. And then if you consider to the intermediate uveitis, and that is your uh, pars planitis. And if you go to the, if we call this as posterior uveitis, and that is your choroiditis. Inflammation of the choroid is called as choroiditis, and the inflammation of the pars plana is called as pars planitis, and then this both is called as the iridocyclitis. So I think everyone is clear in this topic. Then the first we will move on with the iris. So what about iris? So first of all, iris is the muscular tissue. Muscular tissue. So why we call this as a muscular tissue? We all know that in the center it has the pupil which constrict and it's elongate. So this helps in the movement. So this iris should be a muscular tissue. So help in that movement. So it is all which is known as the pupil. And let's come to the thickness. So thickness. So we studied that the cornea and the sclera, they varies in the thickness. So as that, this iris also, the thickness is varies. So the thickness varies. So now I want to ask you a question. So where is this? The thickness of the iris is maximum, and where the thickness is minimum. So in the short term, which is the thickest and which is the thinnest? So any idea which will be the thickest and which will be the thinnest? So let me tell you, the thinnest part will be the root of the iris. Root of the iris. So what is the root of the iris? As I showed you this model, this is your iris and this is your ciliary body and this is your pars plicator and plana. This is the root of the iris. So the place where this is the thinnest, this part is the thinnest of the iris. So that's why it is called as the site of iris detachment. So place where the iris is attached is called as the site of the iris detachment. So in that part you can see the thinnest part of the iris. And where is your iris is maximum thickest is your collar rate. So what are you thinking about what is colorate? Beecher, I'll explain what is coloration with the picture of the iris. Okay, I have a picture for you to make you understand more clearly. So we all know that by this time, we all know that this white part is known as sclera, and this whole part is known as your cornea. So behind the cornea, so let me erase it. So behind the cornea, you have a pupil. So this is your pupil. And then this border is called as your pupillary margin of iris. Then and the rest of the peripheral part is your iris. Now the iris is divided into two zones. So first the zones nearby. So you can see the place here to. So this border. This zone is called as your pupillary zone of iris. So the zone nearby to the pupil is called as the pupillary zone of the iris. So in between these two zones, you can feel that color change. So this part. So in between this zone, there is a transition of the color change, and this is called as your color red. So at this point, you can see the maximum thickness of the iris. So we have studied that the maximum thickness is colorate. So don't get confused. So in between the zones, these two zones, the layer is called as the colorate. So in that zone, you can see the thickest part of the iris, and the thinnest is the root of the iris, where the site of the iris is detached. So in that you can see the thinnest part, and the colorate is your most thickest part. Okay. Before we studied that iris is made up of the muscles. So iris is made up of the muscle tissue. So iris is made up of muscle. So how many muscles do this iris have? This iris has two muscles. So what are the two muscles? So one is your sphincter pupillae and another one is your dilator pupillae. So these are the two muscles of the iris. One is the sphincter pupillae and the dilator pupillae. So let us think. So what is the work of this pupil? So we all know that it is an aperture which is able to constrict and it's able to dilate. So what is the help of this sphincter pupillae? So let us move on with the function. So function, uh, let me this sphincter muscle helps in the constriction of the pupil. So it is also known as meiosis. So this is the sphincter muscle helps in the constriction called as meiosis. So now we will move on with the dilator pupillae. So it is very easy. So in the name dilator, so it helps in the dilation of the pupil. So dilation of the pupil is also known as mydriasis. Mydriasis. So the dilator pupillae helps in the mydriasis. So sphincter pupillae helps in the meiosis, which is the constriction of the pupil, and the dilator pupillae helps in the dilation of the pupil, known as the mydriasis. So I will give you the easy way of understanding this. So in the mydriasis, you have the letter D. So in the mydriasis, you have a letter D, and here the dilation, and in the dilator. So if you learn about this dilator pupillae, then think of D, the mydriasis. Then meiosis means it's a sphincter pupillae. So now let's move on with the nerve supply. Okay. Nerve supply. So what is the nerve supply of this sphincter pupillae? So it is parasympathetic. So it is the parasympathetic nerve supply. So because of it has the inhibitory. So the pupil has to constrict. So anything that has the inhibitory or like that functions, we know that it is a parasympathetic. So in the same way, we have it is a parasympathetic nerve supply. So what are the cranial nerves that supply to this? We can remember as 3, 7, and 10. So these are the cranial nerves that's supplying. This is a parasympathetic nerve. So how you can remember this? 3 plus 7 is equal to 10. The only thing you need to remember here is the number 9. So which nerve is supplying it's your oculomotor nerve. And what is the end ganglionic nerve it supplies is your short ciliary nerve. So how you can remember is sphincter muscle, and this yes, you have the word yes, and the final nerve is your ganglionic nerve is your short ciliary muscle. So this is an easy way to understand this. So now we have completed this sphincter muscle. Now we will move on to the dilator pupillae. So if the sphincter pupillae is parasympathetic, then your dilator pupillae should be a sympathetic nerve supply. And then the final ganglionic nerve is in the sphincter pupillae you have the short ciliary nerve. So in dilator pupillae you have the long ciliary nerve. So this is the wait 1 minute. So this is the difference between your sphincter pupillae and your dilator pupillae. So the function of sphincter pupillae is constriction, and it is supplied by the parasympathetic, and the cranial nerves are 3, 7, 9, and 10, and the oculomotor nerve, and the final nerve is your short ciliary nerve. And if you move on to the dilator pupillae, it helps in the dilation of the pupil, known as mydriasis, and the nerve supply is sympathetic, and the final ganglionic nerve is your long ciliary nerve. So in this we finished the iris. So now we will move on with the second middlemost layer is your ciliary body. So we all studied this clearly in the previous video. So ciliary body, it consists of two parts. This is your pars plicata and pars plana, and pars plana is relatively avascular. So we all studied this in the previous video. So in this video, what we are going to see here is what is the function of the ciliary body. So let us move on with the main function of the ciliary body is the secretion of aqueous. Secretion of the aqueous. Is the main site of secreting this aqueous is your non-pigmented epithelium of the ciliary process. So this is the main site of the secretion of the aqueous. So more clearly means it is a non-pigmented layer of the ciliary process. That is a place where the aqueous is secreted. And the second main function, the first function is your secretion of the aqueous, and the second main function helps in the accommodation. So what is this accommodation? So it is very simple. So accommodation is helps in the nearsightedness. So if we are seeing any object in nearby, so this accommodation takes place and it helps to see the nearby objects. So more clearly, it is the part of near reflex. So let me highlight it for you. So accommodation helps in the near reflex. So what is this near reflex? So it's nothing but the changes that takes place in our eye when we look at the nearby object. So that is called as your near reflex. So here the near reflex is comprises of three parts. It comprises of three parts. So what are the three parts? The first one is your accommodation, and the second one is your convergence, and the third one is your meiosis. So the near reflex is comprised of this accommodation, convergence, and your meiosis. So by this we are completing our second part, that is ciliary body. Now we will move on with the third one. The third middlemost layer is your choroid. So for this I will draw a diagram. Wait a minute. Okay, here lies your pupil, and here is your lens, here is your cornea, sclera, limbus, the junction, everything. So we already studied that in the previous video. So this part is known as your pars plicata, and here this area is called as your pars plana, and the remaining part, that this, wait a minute, so this remaining posterior part is called as your choroid. So this is your choroid. So what is inside that choroid? So let me draw with the yellow color structure. So behind this choroid there lies a layer only in the posterior surface, and this is your retina. So this is your retina. So this is about the anatomy of the choroid. So the posterior part of the ciliary body is called as your choroid, and behind that there is the layer called as the retina. Okay, by this we are completing our anatomy of the middle layer of the eye. So in the next video we will study about the anatomy of the innermost layer of the eye. I think this video will be useful to you. For more videos is like this, like, share and subscribe to the channel for more informations. Thank you. Stay happy, stay healthy. Bye bye.